Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow and to keep employment going. And it's a good gig, Lance. It's nice to be able to help the American economy, the American worker, and don't forget how important that our job is.
Bob, I wrote an article in the year 2000 when I was at the University of Arkansas about the importance of small business and how it drives the economy. Of course, I'm not the only person that's ever written an article like that, but it popped up and I read it again, and it just reminds me, without small business owners, they represented 90% of the employment growth during that era, and the same thing's true today. We have to have good, vibrant small businesses.
And don't forget, a lot of these entrepreneurs, the first-generation immigrants, and they go and start the family business. So I mean, it's there's a lot of good stuff that's happening. Hey, there's the certificate. Be sure and download those. Katie Guide, her PPP. Katie Roach, her PPP forgiveness guide. Katie, we have to update that. We're going to do that. We got news going on in that. But let's go to the poll questions. Providing an accurate calculation of PPP loan forgiveness for loans less than $50,000 is now the responsibility of the borrower. True or false?
Bob, that's an excellent question, because when we did the webinar the other day, a lot of questions, and SBA did clarify it.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that. They did clarify it in our Saturday, trying to get this out. We linked to the wrong Federal Register notice. We have the link to the correct one. For those of you who are interested, it's page 66214. And there's a 4-page one. Let's go to the second poll question. Lenders have to submit backup documentation to SBA on the portal on the 3508S application. Lance?
My understanding is it's just the 3508S, and the lenders are supposed to keep the documentation, as well as the borrowers. It's kind of funny. They say they're supposed to keep everything associated with their PPP loan, not only forgiveness, but the application process for an extended period of time.
Yeah, how many years is that? Katie, do you remember how many years it is? I'm guessing.
I don't want to guess. I know they have to keep it for definitely over a year, but I don't remember how many.
Well, yeah,
years.
definitely over a year.
Well, Bob, let's just go with 5 years or 2 years. One of the two. They're going to have to keep the documentation as long as now, once a borrower is forgiven, that doesn't mean they can throw their documentation out, because SBA could come back and review it. I don't know if it'll be similar to a standard 7A loan, Bob, but many of us know about IPURA reviews and proper payment reviews, and there could possibly be something like that on PPP.
Yeah, Katie, Joseph, let's do some research, and let's get back to the people this week on the documentation retention requirements.
We've been corrected. 6 years.
6 years.
6 years.
Here we go. How's that? Regarding the borrower representation federal notice released today, your personal opinion, does it make the process a lot easier? Yeah, it's about the same, or it's going to make us start tearing more of our hair out? There you go, Lance.
Well, I think it does make the process, I guess, less stressful for the participant lender. You now realize that a good faith review means you got to take a quick look at it, make sure the numbers make sense, but then submit it.
I disagree. You don't even have to take a quick look at it. According to this, you just have to check out that you received it.
Bob,
I apologize.
And I'm not trying to disagree.
You're right.
No, you're right. No, Bob, you're right on point. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, as a Hey, I coined this phrase the other day as a good SBA citizen. I think it would be appropriate to at least take a cursory review of the forgiveness application.
Boy, Lance, you and I certainly switch positions very quickly. No, but you're right. You're right. It doesn't, the regs don't mandate that we do that, and we need to understand that. But I think as a prudent lender, you take 5 minutes to make sure the numbers add up. I agree with you. Absolutely.
Yeah, but you don't have to get your Excel spreadsheet out, crunch numbers. You can rely on the borrower's calculation.
Katie, what's going on in Washington?
So we still haven't got a vote yet. What was originally being reported as a Monday vote has now been sort of pushed back as they're still making negotiations and trying to come up with something. The Senate now plans to vote either Tuesday or Wednesday. However, Pelosi had just recently said yesterday that there's really about a 48-hour deadline for this if they want to get it done before the election, which of course they keep saying they want to try to do. So the negotiations are continuing. They're kind of hung up on issues that are not related to PPP or small business, really. There are other issues. So it really comes down to whether they can pass this or not. Of course, Senate's talking about maybe just trying to do a smaller focused bill for PPP or small business and try to pass that instead. But of course, the House is trying to push for a larger stimulus package. And previously, we heard Trump was kind of interested in a larger package as well. So we'll see what they end up with.
What I like on this, Lance, is that it says the pair spoke more than an hour on Saturday. So they're talking, they're compromising. I've read other stuff where they're splashing and burning stuff, which they can't decide on. So they said, oh, fine, we'll leave that on the table for the future. But at least someone's talking, Lance.
Well, and from what I read this morning, Bob, Wall Street seems to think they might do something.
Well, the market's doing
so. Let's all cross our fingers and our arms and our legs and hope.
Well, the market was doing well. I don't know what's happened.
I haven't seen it recently, but the initial indication, I always like to read what you need to know about the market today, and they expected it to be up because of hopes for the stimulus.
As I said, we linked to the wrong article on Saturday. It is here. It's right on the top, the first PDF link there. It's a 4-page Federal Register notice. And the key part on that is the lender has to confirm receipt. The lender is not required to do any addition, to do an Excel spreadsheet, but they need to confirm that they have the documentation. And it is now the borrower's responsibilities to the IRS when you file your tax returns, Lance. That's the borrower's responsibility to keep those documents for 6 years.
Well, and I think that a lot of borrowers are somewhat hesitant because their CPAs are talking to them about the tax treatment on forgiveness. And with the Payroll Protection Program Flexibility Act, a borrower could delay submission till after the first of the year.
Very good. Lance, Katie, I have not yet read this, but it looked interesting. If you want a copy of it, you can Google it. The Inspector General does this every year. They come up with the top 10 challenges that SBA management must address. Anything of importance there for our audience, Katie?
So I've only kind of briefly gone through this so far. I'm going to probably write about this for tomorrow. But basically, it's going through the top challenges for this fiscal year. And of course, it's going to just, last year's issues are kind of out the window now that we've got PPP and everything like that. So now they're very concerned about fraud risks and oversight for those programs, as well as the usual 7A program and things like that. So that's been added in there. They're trying to focus on some improper payments, focus on fraud in the disaster assistance program as well. It's mostly about fraud in the situation.
Yeah. And numbers
Well-
1 and 2, it isn't the OIG has repeated themselves. We unfortunately are repeating ourselves, but that is number 1. SBA is very concerned about the significant fraud risk and vulnerabilities to the American taxpayer, right, Lance?
Absolutely, Bob. And number 6 is what I was talking about earlier. This is another SBA acronym that you can add. It's called an IPERA review. When SBA pays the guarantee on an SBA loan, it's not done. I mean, you may receive your guarantee payment, but they will select a subset for review, what's known as an IPERA review, and they can overturn that guarantee payment if an incorrect decision was made.
Well, when you say overturn, they're going to send you an invoice, and those are always difficult conversations to have with management. Well, we have a $700,000 invoice from SBA on a loan that we thought we were out of 2 years ago. SBA sort of has an unofficial, a 3-year window now that they will go back. Anything over 3 years, you're pretty well in the clear. But again, it's not specific, correct, Lance?
That's correct. And one thing I would tell any participant lender, if you get that invoice, don't roll over. You have the right to say, no, this is not correct. We do not want to pay it. Here are the reasons for that. I always encourage, if you're sure you did the right thing and you have evidence that you did the right thing, don't just cut a check and send it to SBA. Spend some time fighting back. And not fighting back, but responding.
No, but I agree with you. Yeah, that is definitely something, and they will allow. There's verbiage in there. They will allow you to attempt to correct the file, and definitely, what you want to do is you want to move from a full guaranteed denial situation to some type of repair situation. So,
Exactly.
Katie, you keep on reporting all this great economic news, which we love. What's this all about? What's the National Federation of Independent Business telling us?
So overall, I like to kind of check this about every month or two to see how Main Street's really faring and how they're seeing this pandemic, because of course we're seeing this from the lender's perspective most of the time, and not the borrower. And what's surprising to me is optimism is pretty much back up to where it was before a lot of this happened. Not quite up to records, but we're pretty close again. One of the most significant things, though, they found in this most recent study was that 23% of small businesses plan on hiring in the next 3 months. Now, of course, a lot of them said they're having struggles with hiring, too, because there's not enough people who are qualified for those positions and things like that. So, of course, there's going to be a continuing struggle to try to find that, as well as the cost of keeping employees happy and enticing new employees is going up. So that's going to be a struggle as well for them. But they are planning on hiring and expanding in the next couple of months. So I think that's a great, it gives us a good look on what's going on with small businesses right now.
My take on this, Lance, and I'd like both you and Katie to respond to it, is to put this into context. 2000, 2008, 2009, we obviously didn't have these type of numbers of optimism. In fact, everyone was, how low are we going to go? In this situation, there's a lot of bad news, but there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel, whether it be a vaccine or burns itself out or whatever. So on one hand, while things are terrible for a lot of industries and a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of bank portfolios, we do see the end in sight. Would you agree with that context, Lance?
Absolutely, Bob. I think this is, it's like talking about a deferment on an SBA loan. You need to find a temporary solution to a temporary problem. Although this doesn't seem like a temporary problem, it will go away. And when it goes away, I think the economy will rebound in a very robust manner. And I think most small businesses are smart enough to know that this is not a forever state of business.
Yeah. Katie, I don't expect you to answer that, but I do expect you 50 years from now to say, I remember the pandemic, and let me tell you, let me tell you how this crisis is different because you will experience more crises in your career. So, anyway,
Bob,
go ahead, Lance.
One of the things back in the 80s, I remember was a newly minted employee had a 401k plan with my employer, and the market dropped 40% one day.
Yeah.
I thought it was the end of the world.
Oh, yeah.
And how many times have we experienced something similar to that, Bob, in our careers? Multiple.
I watched the Flash crash live, and I was not happy. Hey, we got a ton of questions. Let's go to them real quick. And then let's address this one real quick, Lance. First time in a while, your prediction is more banks are going to be closed?
This is one of the first banks where another bank took over. I do think that there probably will be some challenged banks and more bank closure and acquisition activity going forward into the end of 2020 and throughout 2021. This means that you're going to see banks that acquire other banks that have SBA portfolios, and they're going to have to figure out what to do with it. So it creates a very interesting situation. And for those with the SBA expertise, Bob, they're going to be in even higher demand when these things occur.
Absolutely. Let's go to the questions. We got a ton of questions. We got a couple minutes. If a borrower submits a 3508S application and neglects to send in what you feel is necessary documentation, great question, Ian. What do we do?
Well, you have the option of recommending approval of forgiveness. You also have the recommendation of not submitting it until.
So what do we do? What do we do? He says, do I reject it? Do I just let it go? Do I send it back? What would Lance do? What would Lance do?
The 3508S says you have to have the documentation. You have to certify that you have it. If you don't have it, you should, I don't know if reject's the word, but you should go back to the PPP borrower and say, we cannot submit for forgiveness until you submit these documents.
Cammie says, I just want to clarify this, that we only need to verify the documents exist, correct?
That's correct.
But you're saying maybe a little higher level of prudence. There's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
Jamie asked the same question. Is the portal accepting these applications, Lance?
I thought it was supposed to start today.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's what I heard.
Have you heard? Okay.
Yeah.
If someone has, we're assuming it starts today. If that's different, let us know. Kyle says, yeah, when I'm talking about, when Lance is talking about taxes, it is still unclear. We do know that the forgiveness was not taxable at the federal level. There's still some issues on whether it's taxable at the state level. I haven't followed up on that last couple of weeks. Lance, Katie, have you heard anything more or what's going to happen with that?
Nothing new. No, I just know there are several states that were talking about possibly taxing it. A lot of people were saying that's not the intent of the bill, and even going through the bill myself, the original one, it doesn't sound like it should be taxable. So,
well, we understand that, but
yeah,
state.
Well, and I agree. I agree with what Katie's saying. It shouldn't be taxable, but there are some PPP borrowers who are concerned about it being taxed on the state level, and like I said, if that's a concern, just submit for forgiveness in January.
Yeah. And Sherman, again, yeah, there's a lot of questions on, tell us exactly what we need to send to SBA. All we're sending is the 3508, correct, Lance?
That's what I understand is 3508S.
We're still expecting the other shoe to drop on loans over 50, but we have a very clear understanding now of loans less than 50. And Katie is going to update her guide. As we've said, anybody who registered for the webinar will send that to you automatically. I know we got a couple more people who want that, and we'll take care of you. Hey, congratulations to all these people, the new NADCO board. There's some friends of ours on there, so good for you. Good for you for volunteering your time, giving back to the industry. 504 is an important program, so congratulations to everyone on the list. Let's see, we got. All right, I'm going to take an extra minute to answer these other questions because this is a hot topic. Philip says, yes, the SBA portal is accepting the Form 3508 as of today. Thank you very much, Philip.
Yep.
Pam says, if the borrower, hey, Pam, it's been a while. If the borrower, editorial comment, I haven't seen Pam for a while. If the borrower includes an amount for an idle loan, should we approve full forgiveness or change the amount of forgiveness? Great question.
Well, the idle advance has to be
Right.
reduced from the amount of forgiveness.
So is that I assume that's a lender function, correct? So the lender needs to check that?
Bob, I'm not actually submitting things in the portal, but my understanding is the portal cross-checks and determines if there's an idle advance and will reduce it. But I think as a lender, if you know there was an idle advance, you'll want to reduce the forgiveness amount by the amount of the idle advance.
Yeah. And then Russell makes an editorial comment. We've talked about it, is that obviously commercial real estate, residential real estate landlords are, they are not in that 23% optimistic category. I'll leave it at that. Obviously, that's something we're all watching. Real quick, Reed says they use an actual, they use the 360 for commercial business and the actual 365 consumer and mortgage. They don't use 3360, so that's good. All right, well, very good. Lance, Katie, thank you very much for your time. Everyone else who's joined, wow, huge numbers, thank you. Oh, Lance, real quick, give a plug for Wednesday and then we'll sign off.
Guys, it's really important to understand what to do with an SBA loan once it becomes delinquent. Wednesday's webinar is going to give you some tools and some techniques to properly service your SBA loans that are 60 days or more delinquent.
Russell says, by the way, SBA does the idle reduction. Interesting.
That's what I was thinking. They take care of it.
They take care of it, so we don't have to worry about that. Gene, we'll talk about your question tomorrow. Anyway, thank you all for joining us. You know, I like to start and stop on time. Obviously, today I'm going to stop on time, but enjoy your week. Talk to you tomorrow. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good day.